Let's jump in. And
So what we're going to do now is actually go around the circuit and stop at a few points around the track and actually talk some more specifics about the actual
yep,
techniques at around the circuit itself.
great.
So obviously we'll start in sequence. We'll start at turn one. And
And here we are. Here is the first one.
now one of the things here, what we assessed on your initial session that we reviewed was... what was that? If you can put that note back on the screen for me there.
Yeah, it was the 150 metre mark.
Yep.
It was not braking hard enough.
Yeah, so if you can put that up just so I can remind myself of the notes that I made for you there. Yeah, perfect. So yeah, initially in these laps you were using the 150 board as generally your point of reference for your braking zone, and you can see that board ahead of us here in the still frame. One thing you were doing when you got to that 150 mark was that you weren't using your brake pedal very hard until you got to about 100 metres. So that meant that you were basically wasting, and you can see from the graph down here, you're off the accelerator there. You've started to bring the brake in now, and you're just getting, there's full brake there. Yeah. So essentially you've almost used up 50 metres of track before you've actually got the brake to do anything for you to actually get the car retarded. So what you'll end up doing there is you then carry...
So you're saying it has to be like 100% now. I have to stamp on that brake. Well, you know, wherever my braking zone is, I have to stamp on that brake hard.
Definitely, you want to use the brake a lot quicker. You want to get to that 100% a lot quicker. Now, there is a slight introduction with the brake pedal so that you're not shocking the tyres quickly, instantly, but there is that is really a really small touch of the brake to let it know you're coming, and then you full brake from that point on. Okay. And that's going to get a couple of things working for you. Obviously, full brake pressure means you've got good retardation from the brakes, but it's the way that the weight has come forward and started to also push the tyres into the surface of the road and got that weight to assist the braking effort that you can bring to the game. If you go in and you're a bit slack on getting the brake on, the weight transfer takes a lot longer and the tyres don't have that same push into the surface and additional grip that can offer. So you're sort of minimising what grip you have available when you're doing a slower uptake of the brake pressure. Okay. The other thing that happens if you're slower on the brake uptake is that you tend to then still be trying to wipe off speed as you're turning in towards the corner, and in some cases that means people are overusing the brake in that turn-in phase of the corner or overslowing, and that turns into overslowing the car on the way in the entry phase as well, which wasn't what you were doing though, because we'll see that as we go a little further forward here. So as before we've even turned in now, on the next freeze frame here, you can see that you're off the brake. And so what you're doing is turning in without any assistance on those front tyres whatsoever. You're literally just hoping that there's enough grip from the tyres to make a high-speed turn. And that's not going to help at all. What we want to be doing with the brake is to still be using a little bit of it as we get to the turning phase so that the weight is coming off the front of the car in a gradual motion, and that means that the tyres are going to have a little more assistance pushing down and the weight and balance of the car is going to be set up to give your car a better opportunity of turning and rotating to the direction that you're trying to make it manoeuvre to.
So I should be braking here, not accelerating.
Exactly. You can also see that you're already bringing the throttle back in, and not only are you bringing it in, but that's like 40% throttle. That's quite a significant amount of throttle, as we're already at this point, you're at 50% throttle now, and you haven't even got to the apex of the corner. Wow. So what you've done is now taken, not only did you have no weight over the front when you were turning in, but now you've taken the weight away from the front. It's meaning that what you're doing is you're probably getting understeer. I can't feel it from here, but I can see it, the way the angle of the steering is on there. And as you get further through this corner, you'll notice that you probably do miss the apex, and you'll end up in a position on the road on the exit where you're still not in the right spot to actually get the best benefit of getting out of there. So that needs to be changed, where you're not getting on the throttle until you're further down the road there. You're probably another... probably 10 to 15 metres, probably 10 metres down the road from where you are there.
Yeah, I'm finding this with Assetto Corsa, and I guess this is why, I used the E30 M3 to start with, and then I went to a Z3M after this, and I should have just stayed with the M3, but I did find that I just kept on going wide all the time, and now that I'm watching this and you're talking to me about it, it just makes so much sense. At the moment, I'm 50% acceleration, and I haven't even met the reached the apex. And I'm dragging that car so wide, it's ridiculous.
It's really interesting that you've identified that you were going wide, and that's that understeer that I was talking about that you were inducing. But one of the things that would have been in your mind was that the car was an understeery kind of car. It wasn't turning very well, and you've, instead of adjusted your driving, you've changed car.
Yeah, totally.
As it turns out, you did also do some adjustments on the driving, but it's not the car's fault whatsoever. This is totally the driver here, and again, we see this in the real world too, where people blame their car. The car understeers a lot or whatever, and it's just what the driver's doing.
Yeah.
Now, it's funny to see that you are actually near the curb here, so you're basically at the apex. However, there's two things that we can identify from this is that, one, the apex itself is actually a little further back from where you are here, but also the angle of the car is probably the other part that we need to look at that point there. So when you're at this point here, you can see how much steering angle you've still got and how much you still need to carry as you go through. You're actually holding that steering angle for a little bit longer than you need to. And so when you come out of the corner, the car doesn't naturally end up towards the right-hand side of the corner, in this case, the exit of the corner. You can see how much throttle you've got at that point, and you'll notice that amount of throttle that you do have to stay less than 100% for quite some time down the road here because you've overdriven that through the middle of the corner. And so the angle of the car here is actually all wrong as well because of what you've done on the way in.
So the angle of the car, I'm actually heading out towards the green fence.
No, in fact, you'll probably find that you're coming probably too straight here on the exit. You've kind of straightened out the exit too much. And because you're still steering towards the inside of the circuit or to the middle of the track rather than having the car just allowing it to flow to the exit. So in reality, you should already be out towards the exit curb here. If you had have had the angle of the corner turn correctly. So at this point in time, you've had to you've straightened out the exit quite a lot, but you've had to compromise a lot on the way in to achieve that.
So is this where you talk about at the Evolve days? You talk about this corner especially, and the potential for actually going off to the left and hitting the inside wall.
Yeah, so exactly what you've got there with that angle of steering on in the second half of the corner, that can induce oversteer at this part, especially for people that get out near that exit curb. They tend to want to get off the curb, and that can then create that oversteer that spins them to the infield.
Yeah, because I've still got a bit of an angle on that. I mean, it's
you've still got a bit of an angle. And again, you're coming towards the exit curb just now, which is the end of the exit curb. And by then you should already be well and truly straight and driving down the road. So
yeah, right. Wow, wow, what a great dissection of that driver ability. Okay, so now we move up to this turn, and I'll go to the next. Whoops, not that point. Sorry, I'm back at this point. Here we go. So this is that turn, and I'll remove this because I've got no brakes on at all.
Yeah, so similar to turn one where you've used the brake too early and you've now got to the turn-in point and you've got no brakes on. Again, the front end of the car there is basically just floating in the air and the tyres are just screaming out for help. And you're not going to get as accurate turn-in, and the feeling you're getting as a driver is a little bit vague. You won't have as much confidence in the car because it's just not going to be able to do what you want it to do. This corner is what we call a sacrifice corner because it links so quickly to turn two. This is turn 2, and it links so quickly to turn 3. You essentially need to almost give up your road position and speed a little bit here at turn 2 to prioritise and set yourself up for turn 3 because it is the corner that leads to the next little bit of road. The bit between turns 2 and 3 are so short that it's not worth getting. You don't get any gain out of overdriving turn 2. You actually then mess up turn 3. As I mentioned in the intro, though, this section of the track in Assetto Corsa, it looks as though you can get away with a bit of bit of the smudginess here, so it doesn't highlight as much as it does in real life.
So should I be further over to the left here by this curb over here?
Yeah, definitely. You do want to turn in a bit later here because the aim is to end up with the car. You'll carry the brakes in a little bit on that turn in towards the backside of that right-hand curb there at turn 2. And so you can see how early you've turned in.
Just watching this.
And again, if you did this in real life, that would not look anything like it. The turn 3 is almost going to be, you'll end up on the, almost near the grass there at the entry of turn 3 if you did that turn in real life.
I'd be over here.
Correct. Yeah,
wow.
Okay. And whereas where you should be is, like another couple of meters ahead is where you should be clipping that backside of turn 2. And that will then open up turn 3. So the Assetto Corsa doesn't do it justice in terms of the angle of the corners here.
Sure.
And again, you can get away with a little bit.
So really
what we would also
coming in here. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, but don't over exaggerate it. It still needs to be a natural turn, and you'll get that feeling when you start driving it in real life. You'll feel where that balance should be, but it really does need to be a bit further around the backside so that you can then straighten out your run through turns 3 towards turn 4 a little bit more.
Yeah.
And generally speaking, that curb is really quite tall, and in real life, most cars are not going to be happy to go over that curb.
Okay.
Now, the other thing between turns 2 and turn 3 is you don't want to overdrive that section of the track, as in you don't want to accelerate too much there because, again, you won't get any value out of it because it's such a short section of track. But what you will do is upset turn 3, and then you've got to then make an adjustment at turn 3 to fix up what you've overdone at turn 2. So just through there, you've got away with it again in Assetto Corsa, you can get away with it. But in real life, stop just there. In real life, you should be at 100% throttle by now.
Oh, wow.
In this, you're still having to feed the throttle in because the angle of the road that you've driven has been, you've got too much steering on because of the way you've gone through there. So that this section is probably a bit more relevant in real life, that we can give you more value, but the process you want to be thinking about is getting towards the backside of turn 2 and not overdriving between turns 2 and 3. You're really just starting to reintroduce the throttle at the backside of turn 2, maybe 5, 10, 15% by the time you get to the apex of turn 3. And then from turn 3 onwards, you can really start to drive out of there. And in most cases, at this point in time, you're 100% throttle. It's a very...
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. No, I do find that this coming up to turn 4, when you've driven the Z3, which I had before, you would almost get a slingshot out of it. Not slingshot, but it would be a really smooth motion. Whereas for me, I was coming out of turn 2 and 3, kind of going, oh god, what's going on? And then, I wasn't on full throttle or things like this. And then I was all coming out of turn 4, kind of, not. It wasn't optimal, that's for sure. It was, whereas when you drove it, it was just very smooth, and we were through there, and you were, 10 to 15k faster than me, and I just thought, where is this coming from? I don't, so I think it's turn 3, isn't it?
There's a couple of things that work together on that, and one of them is vision that we mentioned earlier, and because these corners are linked together so closely, you do need to be looking as far ahead as possible and planning to the next corner, the next corner, the next corner. That's where a lot of people get caught out. They're turning into turn 2, they think about turn 2. When they get to the exit of turn 2, they think about turn 3.
Right.
You can't do that on a corner that's so close together. They are basically one. And essentially you're thinking turn 2 is the entry to turn 3. It's not a corner on its own. It's actually the entry to the next corner. And the vision will help you to identify that. And again, through this section with vision, it's difficult because it is a little bit tight. You can see walls on either side, so there's not as much vision across the curbs and up the road. So you need to be looking up and picking up those bits of information that are coming at you as quickly as possible. So as soon as the vision of the circuit opens up around a barrier, you can then see, all right, that's where I'm heading to, that's what's coming up next.
Yeah.
One of the things that you've been doing through here in the sim session here is that when you're getting through the exit of turn 3, you're probably still just getting out of turn 3 and getting the car straight, and then you're basically into turn 4. Because you've had to steer so much through 3, you've ended up almost joining the 3 and 4 together, and then you've been outbraking yourself at turn 4 because of that. The car's not balanced right to get the braking and turning for that.
Well, I'm not even on the accelerator here. I mean, I'm 60%, whereas you would think that I would be almost going straight by this stage.
Mm-hmm.
Would I be?
And if you consider too how tight of a piece of road that is, you've got walls on either side. You don't want to have the level of angle of steering you've got on there with that much throttle on, because that's every chance to induce an oversteer or some sort of problem, and there's no runoff, there's no margin for error. So that's, I think, one of the other things that when you're going around the track is you're trying to plan what areas of the track have a little bit more margin for error and what bits don't. So therefore, where can you take some liberties and where can you be a bit more conservative? And by driving it through there the way I've described, you're going to find that second half between exit of 3 towards turn 4, you're going to be a bit straighter on the steering. And that means you've got less risk because the car doesn't get upset when it's coming in a straight line as opposed to trying to turn.
Yeah, you've mentioned that before on the back side of the track is, throwing the car around, it just doesn't like it. And if you can keep it steady for a moment in time, then it does like that. So I've been trying to do that, and I think, this is a perfect sort of opportunity to do that. So
it's an interesting concept where there's a combination between going faster and also reducing your risk. If you're driving well, you're going to get two benefits. You're going to have less risk and you're going to be faster. So, and there'll be less wear and tear on the car. So there's quite a few reasons that we want people to be better drivers. It's not because they're going to turn up on our events. It's because they're going to get more value out of it in every angle. They're going to get less risk. They're going to go faster. They're going to have less wear and tear on their car. And all of that means they're going to be enjoying it a lot more.
Totally. So coming up to turn 4, this one is...
And you can see here there's a lot of...
my worst corner. Awesome.
I think I mentioned that, didn't I? Yeah.
You did.
This corner here, I don't think on any lap you got it even close to right. You can see here, you can only just see the edge of it, but you can see your brake. You're at 100% brake, and you're trying to turn in. Look how much angle of steering you've got to turn in, and you will miss the apex. It's going, and then if you miss the apex, you're going to mess up the exit. See, it is over there. You need to hail a cab to get over there. It's such a far way away. So. You can see that what that's leading to is you've had to put in an excessive amount of steering. You've got, now the car is going to be all on the wrong angle on the exit, and you're going to, obviously when you're out in that section of the track in the real world, that's quite dirty and rubbish and, rubber build up and all that sort of stuff out there, so there's less grip. And it really is, it messes up this exit out onto the back straight, and it is an important exit part of the track. One of the things with when people prioritise sections of a track, they always look at the slow corner leading onto a long straight, because they are always thinking about getting a very good run onto that straight for a top speed benefit. Yeah. Top speed is a little bit of a benefit, but you're not going to see a big difference between a good run and a medium run on the exit of a corner. But what you will see, especially in lower powered cars like this one that we're using in the sim here, is that your run between the exit and the first, say, 200 metres out of the corner, if you get it right, that build up in velocity between those 2 points is going to be quicker, and then beyond that is where the aero and the power and all those things start to have more of an impact, and the difference between a good exit and a worse exit gets closer. But that first bit is where your lap time is generated from. If you can get a good exit there and get that first couple of 100 metres out of the corner strong, and the car is going with minimal sideways load, it's all forward movement, then you're going to find that not only will your top speed maybe be a kilometre or so quicker, but your lap time will be significant quicker because you've actually got that velocity gain happening a lot more
Yeah,
rapidly.
because I don't even know how fast I'm going in this part, but it's obviously I'm you know understeering, 55%, throttle. It's just abysmal, really.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
and then I think, and I'm trying to accelerate, but I'm not even my steering is not even. I'm not even. Well, I'm opening up
Well,
the steering.
yeah, I mean, you were able to accelerate and you're now opening the steering, but the angle you've taken to get through there
Yeah.
is totally wrong. And so,
Right.
although you are able to do that, you've had to really slow the car down significantly to get it to make that turn.
Yeah.
And so, although you're accelerating and you're straightening the steering, you were doing it from a much lower speed than had you been doing it at the right line and the right entry phase of that corner.
Sure.
So, seeing you right here, if we only took that snapshot and said, here's the exit to turn four, we'd go, oh, well, okay, yeah, he's almost straight on the steering wheel, he's 100% throttle, fantastic. But because you were doing it from 30 k's an hour in the middle of the corner rather than 60 k's an hour in the middle of the corner, it
Yeah.
has no value. So, yeah, we
You
can't
could
just
probably.
look at that one snapshot and suggest that you're doing a good job when we know that what happened beforehand was significantly wrong.
Yeah, and I guess I don't know what an E30 speedo looks like, but I don't know if that's 60k an hour or what it is, but it's not
Yeah.
significant. Yeah.